At the beginning of the movie, a man is drinking whiskey. Attila is the name of the man. He is alone and often robs banks. This time, he is going to rob a small bank on the edge of town. But before the story goes on, we go back to the childhood of a character. When he was young, he was very annoying to the villagers, let alone a priest. Attila loved to drink, banquets and church secretly. Then the scene continues and a policeman is seen in his. Attila was put in jail not long after he grew up and came into the room this time. He has done this many times, of course. Attila meets a police officer named Laszlo. Then, Laszlo started talking to Attila, and it turned out that Attila had robbed 26 times in the last 6 years. Then Laszlo wanted to talk about all of the thieves. So there will be flashbacks that take us back to Ellis. Till's childhood was hard. Even his father wasn't enough to take care of and educate him, so he was taken in by a family. But the family is so poor that they can't even take care of the Nai Attila, so Attila was sent to a special school at one point. For a boy like Attila, the place was a punishment. After being sprayed with water, Attila was put in a room with a lot of children. Then, on that day, Attila got a pretty tough lesson. Back to the present, to Laszlo, that place was like a prison for Attila. Laszlo told Attila that sad stories about his childhood are not enough to get him out of jail early. During his education, Attila was sent back in time, and now he is being trained to be a state mercenary. There, Attila learned how to shoot. It has noticed that only Attila is good at shooting. Not only that, but Attila has also been put in charge of a prison. While he was on duty, it was seen that 2 prisoners were trying to sneak out of jail. Then Attila caught them, but he didn't have the courage to kill the 2 men. But soon after, other officers shot and killed the 2 people at night. Attila asked herself, why are people so mean and cruel? He thinks that everyone has to go through life as a punishment. And with that in mind, Attila tried to sneak away from the. God still had mercy on him, though, so Attila could finally leave that place. He slid under the train car and away from the place where he was being punished. At the train station, it is clear that all Attila has is a belt, which he uses to tie to an iron in the carriage. However, his efforts did not go to waste. He got away and made it to Budapest. When Attila got there, he went to the bathroom and was about to wash his dusty face. Shortly after that, a bald man with a briefcase showed up. Then, Attila took the man's clothes to protect himself. And from then on, Attila said he was free in his own person. Attila wanted to keep pursuing his dream of playing ice hockey at another time. He went to a place where Attila played ice hockey as a goalkeeper. But it turns out that Attila needs a lot of practice before he can play on the first team. Still, Attila's coach Boda was kind and willing to let him sit on the bench. Not only that, but Attila has nowhere to sleep and is willing to work as a cleaner as long as he has a place to stay. The coach was kind enough to give Attila an apartment as well. On the other hand, he has to manage his time as an office boy where the hockey team practices, starting with cleaning the ice hockey rink. Then, in between his new jobs, he fixed lights that were broken. Attila was lucky that his new hockey teammates were very honest with him. At that time, it's clear that he was asked to hang out with his hockey buddies. Then, while they were talking, Attila saw a girl who made him fall in love. He hadn't seen a girl since he was a child, so he went after the girl and asked to meet her. Attila was too busy to find out the name of this beautiful girl, though. So, when the train pulled away, Attila ran to the next station stop right away. Attila was lucky again because he got to the station before the woman's name was then found out to be Kata. When Laszlo heard this story, he looked like he was about to cry. The story of Attila's life is the exact opposite of what he was doing at the time. Becoming a thief, continuing the story of Attila from the past, because he needed a permit or an ID card as a citizen to work. Attila went to the office for letting people in. But this time, he wasn't so lucky. In order to change his citizenship, Attila had to bring documents from his country to be checked, which was a complicated process. So, Attila was told to come back in 2 weeks with the requested letters and conditions. He couldn't do it, of course, because going back to his house would be like killing himself. So, we move on to Attila and Kata's love story. One day, they walked to the movies, but Attila didn't have any extra money with him, not even enough to buy popcorn. So, he felt bad that Kata had to pay for the difference. The next day, Attila and his teenage daughter were seen at the gym. Because it was hard to get his citizenship papers, Attila asked Zero to help him out. Zero's uncle works at the immigration office, so Attila naturally asks him for help to get his citizenship papers right away. Zero is willing to help him, which is good news. Attila went to ZTE after the gym to borrow money to pay for his transfer. When I got the long money. In short, Attila ran into Zero's. Uncle Evan gave the facilitation money along with a passport failure, but it turns out that the facilitation money is still not enough. But Attila ran out of money. Thanks to the kindness of Zero's uncle, the transfer of Attila's residence will be tried. When Attila went home after training, he heard that a dictator in Europe had died. This made him worry that his letter to change his citizenship would take a long time to process. After that, Attila's days were boring because he worried that he would have to leave the country because he didn't have an ID card. Then he tried to call Zero's uncle again, but the phone was always busy and he couldn't find a bright spot. He finally got the courage to go to Zero's uncle's office. When they met there, Attila did exactly what he was told. Uncle Zero did take care of it, but because the money to make it happen wasn't enough, it took a long time and Attila had to get it sin. On the other hand, Attila's journey with love is still going on. Attila was introduced to Kato's parents, but he didn't have much to say when they asked him about his plans and work. Kato, on the other hand, already has a bright future, which made Attila uncomfortable, so he decided to leave right away. When Kato found out this, she was sad. Then, on his way home, Attila realized that his future would still be hard. The scene then shows Attila State, who is in jail at the moment. He was alone and had no one with him. Laszlo is with Till, his only friend, who is still interviewing him on the way back to Attila. He once went to a post office and looked around, but there didn't seem to be a single guard there. And this is where Till's plan to steal starts to show up as a way to hide it. Attila went to a market to buy a wig and a toy gun. Then they went home. Attila dressed like a young businessman before going to the post office to send a letter to Rob. When Attila got there, he drank a bottle of whiskey to calm down. He drank so much that his face turned white. At first, the tellers didn't believe that Attila was robbed because this was his first time robbing. But a few seconds later, he locked the tellers in place and took the money. After that, Attila got away with a lot of money. Then, Attila went into a train tunnel so that he wouldn't leave any signs. He took his shoes and clothes off there, too. When he went home, he had a lot of money because of what he had stolen. Then he put the money in the oven to hide it. From there, Attila felt financially free and went out to have fun right away. He even paid debts too. That wasn't the end of it. Attila bought a car as well. Even Attila went back to see Kato after being away for months. Attila said that he had been busy making money so that he could show Kato's parents that he was doing well. Kato looked very happy about it because of this. When Attila got home from hockey practice, his friends were there to see him. At first, they thought that Attila had robbed the bank, but Attila told them that he made his money by selling bear skins. But over time, the amount of stolen money went down, so Attila thought about robbing somewhere else. The bigger one, of course, is where things start to happen. This time, he gets away by riding a motorcycle. But there is a guard there to keep things safe. At first, Attila didn't know, but as soon as he walked out of the post office with the stolen money and saw the security guard, he ran away. But just a short time after he left, Attila was suddenly hit by a car. He then started the car quickly, and there is a scene where Attila and the security guard run away from each other. Attila was still lucky because he got away by sliding into the river, and after what happened at Till's, things got even worse. He kept robbing banks until he was very wealthy. He never forgot his whiskey, so people started calling him a whiskey robber. Attila once took Kato and went on a trip around the What You Hear tells a story. Then Laszlo wondered why people like him can go all over the world but good people like him have never left this country. In short, Attila was back at practice with his hockey team one day. He met Bohassan Gaza at that time, and Bohassan Gaza would play with Attila in his next game. During the next heist, Attila was able to get away again. But this time, the bank area was closely watched by the police, and all roads leading to it were closed. So Attila had to go to the bank building's roof. He fell asleep there, even though he had been waiting for so long. The next morning, Attila still had good luck and was able to get away. On the other hand, Attila is now well known for stealing whiskey. Even then, he was still able to pay for the bee. Not only was the Whiskey Bandit in the news, but it was also made into a movie and a book. Gaza is smoking in front of the training ground when all of a sudden he sees Attila coming. To make a long story short, Attila got into a fight with a teammate during a match. In the evening, Gaza does help Attila. They talked about what happened while they were hanging out by the side of the road. Not only that, but Attila also started to tell Gaza the truth about what he was doing. Till didn't leave because he was tired. Instead, he was planning a bigger robbery and needed someone to help him pull it off. Gaza, who had been made his partner, agreed because the idol of the lower classes turned out to be his own friend. After that, to make a long story short, the two of them robbed a big bank. At that time, Gazel was put in charge of watching the exit while a guard was found. Attila took the money from the safe. Last but not least, Till kept a bottle of whiskey, which was his trademark. In a few words, the robbery went well. In the evening, they have a party to celebrate. Then, one time after hockey practice, all of a sudden, Attila heard GZA talking about stealing. When Attila saw this, he pulled GZA out of the house right away. Even though GZA was just kidding, Attila told him to be careful. The next day, Attila's life starts to be hard because he always has to hide behind something. The next day, Attila and Dessem make plans to rob another bank in Hungary. And the robbery started right away after the survey was done. At first, everything went well, but then one of the bank's bodyguards locked the safe from the inside, making it hard for Attila and Dessem to get much money out of it. When the workers at the front of the bank caught the robbers, they kept having bad luck. Then, when Desai Attila came out of there, the workers went up to him right away. And a split happened between Gaza and Attila. Attila had to steal a car that was already there. Attila was also chased by the police right away, but he hit a car. At that point, the car was still running, but the police were still giving chase. Till's fate was in danger during this time, but he was able to get away when he was at home cleaning the glass shards off of his back after the accident. Kata came out of nowhere. When Kata found out that Attila was in such a bad way, she stopped talking and didn't want to hear about it. After hearing what Attila had to say, Laszlo now has a list of demands that he plans to take to court. When Attila heard this, he thought that Laszlo had set him up after the last fight with Attila in Gaza. They get together and plan to rob again, but this time is very different, and they even make a backup plan. If one of them gets caught, he has to wait 3 days before he can talk to the police. And GZA agreed with that, of course. In short, they were ready to break into the Hungarian bank and steal money. Attila told GZA to first lock the door and then keep the hostages in a room so that Attila could get the money from the safe. After being successful, they were ready to leave right away when they heard the sound of police sirens. They didn't remember that the door was locked before, so forcefully Attila shot the glass door and got out. But the action had to come to a sad end because the police caught GZA, while Attila managed to escape. GZA also remembered that he had told the police he wouldn't talk to them for 3 hours. When he was interviewed by the police, he didn't say a word, even though Attila was trying to find a way to save GZA from the police. While this was going on, GZA kept getting hit until he fell while waiting for Attila. But GZA let him go because he asked what time it was. So Laszlo, who was torturing Gaza, figured out that Gaza was waiting for something. Then Laszlo told his men to put Gaza in a different room. The time on the clock in the room was sped up. So, when GZA saw that the clock showed more than 3 hours, he told Gaza right away who Attila was really Attila, and he was at the border when the police showed up and took him to the immigration office. It didn't take long for the other cops to show up, and that was the end of his life. Long story short, Kata went to see Attila in prison one time. But it turns out that Kata has been dating someone else, and the money Attila has been saving for Kata has run out. Now, back to Laszlo and Attila. Attila was alone. Now that he is working on Till's case, Laszlo is feeling stressed. Because of the case, he has lost a lot of time with his family. Soon after that, Attila went back to his cell, but this time he didn't stay quiet. He took some wires from Laszlo's room. Attila pulled out the cable and tried to get away from there right away. After getting through a few rooms without being caught, Attila tried to get out of the prison by going through A. But it didn't work because the police already knew about it. The SWAT team was also sent out to find the whiskey bandit. By the end of the day, it was announced that Till had been caught and put back in the cell. Then, at the end of the movie, we find out that Attila has been freed after 12 years in prison and is now a merchant. He learned about this while he was still in the cell and watching the movie.